Hey everybody, this is Russ from Retro Game Core. At long last, after years of whining about it, I finally got my hands on a third-party controller that works on an Xbox wirelessly and also has a charging dock, and it's under $100. And that's the first time I've ever seen this on the market. This is the 8BitDo Ultimate 3-Mode controller. That means it works for Xbox and PC and mobile, and it's a special edition one. You can see here it's made in celebration of Rare's 40th anniversary. And it's your typical 8BitDo Ultimate controller experience in terms of shape and overall feel, and it comes with one of these charging docks as well, which I always love. And so this is the really cool thing, is that I can throw this on the dock to charge it, I can pull it off, and it'll connect wirelessly to an Xbox, which is a very rare thing, no pun intended. There have been other third-party controllers that can connect wirelessly to Xbox, but they are often like Elite style controllers, so they're going to be a lot more expensive, usually $200 or more. So this is the first one I've seen under $100. It's $90 retail. It's got a few bells and whistles, including a metal D-pad, so we will test that out as well, but otherwise I think it'll be a pretty quick review. So grab your favorite snack and drink, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, here's a look at the box, and this was sent over by AKNES, who is a third-party distributor of 8BitDo and other products. Like with all my other videos, all opinions are my own. They're not going to see this ahead of time, and no money was exchanged in any way. Now, looking at these features, it seems to be more aligned with the 8BitDo Ultimate controllers than the more recent Ultimate 2. For example, the Ultimate 2 has TMR joysticks, but this one has Hall sensor sticks. It's also missing a couple other bells and whistles found in the Ultimate 2, like this yellow one. For example, this one has these upper bumpers, and this one does not. And then also on the back, the Ultimate 2 now has like these hair trigger switches, and this rare one does not. And so it doesn't seem to have all the bells and whistles of the Ultimate 2. Instead, it's just like a more refined version of the Ultimate 1, but with that Xbox wireless connectivity. Inside the box, we got the controller and the charging dock, and then a quick start guide, and then the regular manual, which is available in 500 different languages. And I'll go over all these features in this video, and down below that, we've got two joystick caps. So these obviously are made in celebration of Rare as well. We've got the puzzle piece like we saw in Banjo-Kazooie, and then also a Sea of Thieves skull. Other than that, we've got a really long cable. This looks to be 3 meters or 9 feet altogether. So it's kind of like a living room distance in case you want to play it on your Xbox wired. So let's look at the controller itself, and it definitely has a Sea of Thieves vibe to it. You can see like there's a skull right here, like some sort of octopus, and like a boat. So yeah, there's a bunch of things going on here, but very nautical themed. The texture on the front is a smooth matte, and so not quite as gritty as I usually like, but still feels pretty good. Like with their other Ultimate controllers, the back has like this gritty, bumpy texture to it and is a hard plastic, and I really like the feel of this, so no complaints from me there. I do like the overall look of this controller, the contrast of the bright yellow as well as this deeper kind of blue. And yeah, it just kind of goes all the way around the controller. So I'm the kind of person who likes these stark contrasts, and so yeah, I think it looks cool. The charging dock also fits the same motif, and it's kind of funny that it just says the word Rare on it. You know, I get that it's the name of a gaming development company, but still, it's kind of funny that it just says that on your controller too. We're not going to do like a full in-depth review of this controller, but I will go over some of the basics. So number one is that it has this Xbox kind of offset analog sticks, which makes sense given that this is a licensed Xbox controller. Now this has the same typical 8BitDo Ultimate controller shape in that it kind of looks like an Xbox controller but is a little bit more flat. Like for example, these ergonomic grips are a little bit more straight down compared to flared out on an original Xbox controller. Here is my Starfield controller, an official Xbox controller, and you can see that yes, this one is flared out a bit more, while this one has a little bit more of a narrow angle to it. And the reason why I bring that up is because the way that you hold this controller is going to be a little bit different. So with a regular Xbox controller, you have those nice flares to it, and I end up kind of holding my elbows out a little bit more just because my hands are just naturally like that, like my arms are an extension of the overall grip. Now the 8BitDo has that more narrow angle, and I found that for a lot of people this is just a little bit more uncomfortable because your elbows go inward a little bit more, your shoulders are kind of bunched up more, and so some people don't like to play with these types of controllers for long gaming sessions because it starts to hurt their arms over time. So if that's you as well, you're not alone in it. I see these reports all the time, but something to bear in mind. I personally, I don't have any issues using either of these controllers, but I think it is something worth bringing up because some people do find the Ultimate controllers to be a little bit less comfortable. One manufacturer who does have a very similar kind of flared out style as the original Xbox controller is going to be GameSir. So this is the Cyclone 2, one of my favorite PC controllers, and they just recently released an Xbox controller called the G7 Pro. I actually don't have it on me because it's at the house. It's what I'm using for my PC right now, but they are also working on a wireless Xbox version of that controller too. I will be sure to cover it when I get that in my hands. So long story short, if you want that Xbox style feeling of those flared grips, then something like GameSir controllers are usually going to be a better fit. But if you don't really mind the difference between the two, then an 8BitDo is going to be perfectly comfortable. Now the analog sticks on this controller are Hall sensor, and they also have that metal rim around the edges, which means it has a really nice smooth gliding feel. So this means that it won't develop as much stick drift over time, and then also is super accurate and feels very smooth. So I like these analog sticks. The caps on the sticks are very similar to an Xbox controller as well. It's got that kind of grippy texture around it, and it's kind of a hard rubber. So yeah, overall, it just feels like an Xbox stick. And as far as like accuracy and range and whatnot, yeah, it feels great. It feels like a console controller. So it's a seamless transition for me from a regular Xbox controller to this one when it comes to the analog sticks. Okay, now let's talk about the D-pad. So this is made out of metal, which is kind of crazy. And so it's got this really unique feeling to it where it feels kind of premium and then also pretty cool to the touch, which is something that I wouldn't expect with a D-pad as well. According to the website, this is a zinc alloy that is gold plated. So I'm not sure if the gold plating will rub off over time, but so far it actually looks pretty awesome. The D-pad itself is what they call a tactile D-pad. So this is their more recent updated D-pad that we've seen in a lot of other Ultimate controllers, including the Ultimate 2. And so it's got this kind of dome click to it as well, but it also has quite a bit of travel for it being a dome kind of tactile D-pad. And so I think it feels pretty good, but I have found that on many controllers, it's a little bit too sensitive. And I'm not sure what's going on here, if whether or not it's because it's metal, but this seems to be a lot less sensitive than the other ones I've tested. So something has been refined in this controller. It easily passes my Contra test where I press down on the D-pad and rock it left and right lightly to see whether or not the character moves, and the character stays put. At the same time, if I really try to rock it one way or the other, I can make the character move, and so I am still able to hit diagonals when I want to, but the key here is that I'm able to avoid accidental diagonals. So this is a really great position. I've also found it to be a very accurate D-pad when playing something that's a little bit more precision-minded. For example, playing Celeste with the D-pad, yeah, it feels great. I can go up and down, left and right when I want to, and hit the diagonals when I want to as well. So overall, it feels very precise. In addition, it works great for games like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, where I want to hit a diagonal, so I can do my Hadoukens and Shoryukens no problem whatsoever. And because it's a tactile D-pad, I get that physical feedback as I'm moving across the D-pad. And so yes, I like this overall feeling. It's probably one of the best D-pads I've tested on an Ultimate controller. My only complaint about it is that it starts to feel a little bit slick as you're using it. So it kind of feels like I'm using like a sweaty D-pad or something, just because that metal is a little bit smoother than you may be expecting. But other than that, yeah, I think it's a very good D-pad. On the right side, we got our face buttons, and these are rubber membranes. So very typical kind of feeling from an 8BitDo controller here. They're a little bit quieter than I was expecting. Usually these are really loud and clacky, but overall they have a more retro kind of feel to them, very similar to an Xbox controller. So no complaints there either. Other than that, we've got our Xbox button, which functions like an Xbox button, but it doesn't push down as much as a regular Xbox. It's more like a micro switch, and I kind of like the fact that it's relatively flush and doesn't go super far down. Other than that, we've got our select and start buttons, or whatever they're called on Xbox, plus the share button, and then between them we have the star button. So this can be used to swap different buttons. So for example, if you want the A and B to be swapped, you will hold down A and B and then press the star button, and that'll swap the two. So A will be here and then B will be down here. Beyond that, we've got a little 8BitDo button. This will change your 3 different profiles, which you can set up in the 8BitDo software, which we will also test in this video. On the bottom, we've got a headphone jack. This will allow us to use a microphone headphone, but then also you can just get audio through this as well, and you can turn off the microphone if you would like. On the back, we've got our programmable bumpers, and then also we've got our connectivity options. On the far right, we've got 2.4 gigahertz. That's going to be for the wireless dongle. That'll work on Xbox and PC. In the center, we have wired, again for Xbox and PC. PC. And then on the far left is Bluetooth. This is going to be for iOS as well as Android. Up top, we've got our Bluetooth pairing button, our USB-C port for charging as well as wired connectivity. And then on the right, this is an LED that'll go red when you're charging the controller. Beyond that, we've got our shoulder and trigger buttons. Now, these are labeled as the Xbox. So you can see right bumper and right trigger as opposed to R1 and R2. And the bumpers themselves are tactile micro switches. They're a little bit loud, but still very easy to press down on and are kind of snappy. The triggers are more like a PlayStation style layout, but they feel very good and they have a nice range of travel to them. And this controller also has rumble in the triggers as well as in the grip. So we have 4 different rumble motors here. And other than that, that's about it when it comes to this controller and the overall layout and feel and everything else. Now let's talk about the charging dock. This works just like any other Ultimate controller. So we've got our USB-C port here. So you'll plug the cable from this into your computer or your Xbox. And then underneath we have the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. So the wire itself will actually connect to your Xbox and it'll connect to the dongle, which will then connect to the controller. So it's a one cable solution. And if you want, you can just plug the dongle itself directly into your PC or Xbox and that'll work. Of note, this is a USB-A port. And I think that actually makes sense given the fact that, the Xbox doesn't have any USB-C ports on it. So it makes sense that we have the adapter be USB-A, even though the more recent Ultimate controllers are USB-C. And so this is the way that I would typically use this controller, is that I would plug this cable into my Xbox or PC and then just kind of leave it around and then, put the controller on it. It'll charge when I put it on. And then when I'm ready to play, I'll just take this off, turn it on, and that will connect wirelessly via the dongle through the cable. And so that's the way that I usually will play a controller like this. Of note, when you charge it, it'll have an amber LED. Usually they are white and it'll reflect on the bottom of your surface. So I like the fact that it keeps with the same theme of yellow and blue. And once it's done charging, it will switch from amber to white to let you know that the controller is fully charged. So I think first and foremost, we should just talk about how it works on Xbox because this is the premier feature of this controller. So I've got my dock plugged into my Xbox Series S. It'll charge it when I'm not using it, and then I can pull it off and press the Xbox button. That will turn on my Xbox and get me directly into my game. And it works super fast. There's no additional connectivity. You don't have to go into the settings or anything. It's just going to work like an Xbox controller. And so I love the idea of having a charging dock for my Xbox controller and then grab it and it's going to be ready to go at any time. There are other benefits to using an Xbox controller, like the fact that you can use AA batteries, but I don't know. I personally like the idea of a charging dock because I don't have to worry about finding new batteries either. Now, one thing I'd be curious to know about, which isn't listed on their website, is the polling rate of this dongle. Like, how quick is this connection? How good is the input latency? But unfortunately, they don't have that listed on their website, so who knows what it actually is, but it feels good. Their other Xbox controllers are wired only, and the connection there is 250 hertz, and the wireless connection for those same controllers for PC only is 200 hertz. So I'm not sure what the protocol is with Xbox, whether or not it's 200 or 250, but it's probably somewhere around there. Now, admittedly, I'm not the best at detecting input lag, but overall it felt very snappy when I was playing it, so I had no issues when it came to that, but I would just love to know the numbers so I could share them with you. And then once you're done playing, you can just turn off your Xbox like you would with a regular controller and throw it on the dock. It'll start charging and you'll be ready for your next gaming session. Now, using it with Windows is going to be super simple. You can use the dongle directly into your computer, or you can use the dock. This is the Asus ROG Flow Z13, which is a tablet PC. And so all I did here was I just plugged it in here, turned it on, and it just connected instantly. So everything works great. And so like with the regular Xbox controller, this has a very seamless setup when it comes to working on a Windows-based PC. And same thing with something like the Steam Deck, it's going to work absolutely fine. You can see I've got a USB-C adapter here, but I have the dongle plugged in directly, and yeah, it absolutely works. The controller just shows up as a generic Xbox pad, so you may have to do some extra work to actually get Steam input working on it, but bear in mind that this controller does not have gyro, so you're not going to have the full suite of options that you would with some other controllers. This is really just an X input controller. As far as Android goes, it's a very simple setup as well. Just put it into Bluetooth mode here, turn on the controller, press that pairing button, and then pair it in the settings. And the controller does work perfectly with Android, so the ABXY is actually correct here. This is a problem often with a lot of 8BitDo controllers, and it also has analog trigger input. So you can see here the green kind of goes up and down as I'm pressing it. So yes, we've got full analog triggers as well as correct ABXY. So this will be excellent when using it with an Android-based device. It's the same process as pairing pairing with iOS. So here's my iPhone 15 Pro, and same thing where I put it into Bluetooth mode, turned it on and did the pairing thing, then paired it in the settings. And everything works correctly here too. So you can see that all of the buttons register correctly, and we've also got analog inputs here too. And so if you look as I'm pressing the triggers, you can see that it goes from 0 to 100% depending on where I am. So this will be excellent for playing on iPhone as well. If you want to play like a driving game or maybe, some sort of remote play, all that stuff's going to work correctly with all of these buttons. Now, as far as software goes, we're going to use the 8-bit Ultimate X software. So this can be used on Windows, but they also have Android and iOS versions of their Ultimate software, which will also work. And you can use these to essentially program your controller to work in certain ways. We've got 3 different profile options. That's why we have these 3 dots right here, so you can swap between them. So you can make 3 different profiles depending on what you're playing and how you want to play them. Probably the most important thing here is that you can program in your back paddles in the software. So if you want it to mimic, say, for example, A, B, X, Y, or the bumpers or triggers, or even the start button, you can do all that here. But it is worth noting you can only do it in the software. You cannot do it on the controller itself, which is kind of a pain in the butt. I wish you could do it directly on here like you can with other 8BitDo controllers. You do have those 3 different profiles. So if you wanted 3 different loadouts with these back buttons, you can do that, for like first-person shooter games versus like action-adventure games. But it's still kind of a bummer that you have to go into the software to do that. Either way, it's a very intuitive setup, so you can just kind of program them as you would like, and again, assign it to each of your individual profiles. Also within here, you have your typical other stuff. For example, you can test out your analog sticks. You can adjust their sensitivity. So if you want them to go further or have bigger or lower dead zones, you can do all that here. Same thing with the triggers. You could set up dead zones if you would like, or even make them sort of hair triggers, where as soon as you press it, it goes to 100%. All that is done within the software too. You can also adjust the vibration here, which is going to be linear, which means that when you press it down a little bit, it vibrates a little bit, and so on and so forth. And you can adjust that all individually for each of these. So the triggers and the grips all on their own. And then finally, you can also update your firmware. I had a quick firmware update when I first connected that. So another thing that you can do here in the software. And honestly, that's about it. So it's kind of bare bones in terms of features compared to other controllers, but it does have all of the things that I personally would want to have on here, especially the fact that I can, assign these back buttons, although I would rather do that directly on the controller. My guess is there might be some limitations from Microsoft where they're like, hey, you can't put too many features on a controller that's going to be connected to Xbox. For example, there's no turbo on this controller, and I assume that's like an anti-cheat thing. And so those are the kind of things I thought about as well when I was looking at these features, is that maybe some of this stuff is hampered by the license itself. So that's about it in terms of testing. Let's go ahead and wrap up and talk about what I like and what I don't like about this new 8BitDo Ultimate Rare controller. To start, I like the fact that it's an Xbox wireless controller. I think that's the #1 feature here, and that I can actually use this with an Xbox without having to plug it in. So I love that. I also am a big fan of this whole docked experience. The fact that I can just plop it right on the dock when I'm done, it's going to charge it and be ready to go the next time I'm ready to play. I also think that the coloring here is pretty cool. I like the offset of the blue and yellow, but I can totally understand why this is going to be a little bit polarizing. I was also surprised to find that the D-pad is decent here. It passed all the tests that I usually do, and that's actually better than a lot of other 8BitDo Ultimate controllers. It also has some pretty good compatibility. I was not expecting all of the A, B, X, Y, and triggers to work correctly on Android as well as on my iPhone, but yeah, everything worked great. That being said, it's not a perfect controller, so #1 here is that it does lack some features that I would like to see. For example, I'd love to be able to program my back buttons on the fly without having to go into the software and set up profiles to do that. It's also a little bit pricey for being a somewhat bare bones controller. It's $90 retail. Now, I fully expect that that will go down in price over time. You'll see sales and discounts and whatnot, but still, $90 for a controller is pretty darn steep. Now, some of this price point probably has to do with the Xbox licensing costs that they're pushing onto us, but still, I like the fact that it's under $100, but $90 for a controller is still pretty steep. And then finally, my last point really just has to do with the fact that this is a pretty niche design. If you're not in love with Rare and you want to celebrate their 40-year anniversary, this may not have a lot of appeal for you. So the way I see it is that this is probably the first of many 8BitDo controllers that will come with Xbox wireless connectivity. So if you want the connectivity and you're willing to wait for different color options, my guess is that we'll probably see something beyond just this one limited edition controller. For my part, I think it looks great. I love Rare as a company, and I like the fact that we have this kind of blue and gold aesthetics to it. And yeah, Rare is an awesome game studio. They made RC Pro-Am and Donkey Kong Country and Battletoads and all those Nintendo 64 games that everyone loves as well. So yeah, it's really cool that they made this controller, and I love the fact that it's wireless with Xbox. Whether or not that's worth spending $90 retail is totally going to be up to you, but for my part, I am pretty happy with this, and if I hadn't got it sent to me already, I probably would have been in the market to buy this myself. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and we will see you next time. Happy gaming.